is quite
Why do you keep
stressful.
doing it? It takes a lot of time, it's stressful. Why?
Well, I must. Everyone else knows that. Well, they don't. But
It's a terrible question.
Yeah, it's me. Oh no, I can't do that because I'm blue. I remember that moment. Like, yes, I'm kind of an imposter here. Yeah.
Okay.
In general,
Class dismissed.
Yeah, why life? Yeah, I don't have
Leftovers from the course.
I would say like, yeah, it's the cream. Yeah.
Hello everybody. Today I'm here at BKC International House and talking to Tanya Polovinkina.
Hello.
The speaker of the BKC IH Moscow conference this February. I'd like to ask you about a little bit about actually giving talks at conferences and basically about some questions about your talk.
Okay, great.
Super. Do you remember your first talk ever? How did you start speaking at conferences?
I do remember the first talk, which I had to do at a conference.
Right.
I don't remember, it wasn't obviously my first ever talk, like it wasn't the first time I talked in public, but it was the first time in a big international conference, and I do remember that. And
Where?
It was actually, it's a conference which is an international house conference. It's called IH AMT, Administration and Management Team, and it's basically for school directors and managers and for teacher trainers.
Oh,
yes.
Tough audience.
It's a very, very tough. And before that, I'd done lots of obviously training sessions and training courses, and I thought I'm a fairly confident speaker. And I remember the first few seconds when suddenly I realized who is in my audience, like those people, what can I actually tell them that is new to them. And yes, those first minutes were not particularly pleasant. And
then you don't remember anything.
And then I don't remember much. Yeah, how do you know that?
I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
Yes, and then, but on a more serious note, basically it was a tough experience. And the audience, they were extremely friendly, and they responded well to my talk. But I remember that moment, like, yes, I'm kind of an imposter here. I really, who am I to tell them, what I think is right or wrong? But in fact, it's not like this. If you think about that, what helped me on that particular occasion, and obviously I did improve after that, I hope, a little bit, but I looked at it in a different way. Well, this is a very narrow area, and I did a lot of research into this area, and I know quite a lot about it, and I'll just share my ideas and we'll probably discuss them together. So if you have this attitude that, this is not the ultimate truth, I think it's much easier.
Oh, I see. Thank you for this tip. And actually, one of my next questions is, I know so many teachers, I think who could give talks, and now I'm involved in some conference organization, and I have a project for teachers. Teachers teach teachers. It's about professional development, and actually my dream, my goal is to inspire people and tell them go and give talks and conference, etc. And there is the question they ask me, and I'll ask you, what to do with this feeling, because many teachers get it like, everybody already knows everything, everything's already been discussed, and who am I to tell something new? Well, the
imposter syndrome, but it is true and it's not true. I think there is this lovely quote, I don't remember it by heart, but it's like, the oldest books have just been written for those people who haven't read them, who are new to them. I can't really remember that exactly, but the idea is that yes, you think because you are in this environment, you think everyone knows everything. Well, first of all, I think this is a false assumption, because quite a lot of people, they may have heard about things, they may have, become interested, but it doesn't mean that they know as much as you do. Right. Secondly, you look at it in a different way. Yes, I don't think we're going to discover something like new, and maybe we will, but not every time, not in every conference. But we do learn new things, and we do come up with different ways of looking at things through discussions, through talking to each other. And a lot of positive sort of effect of conferences is not only in just discovering new things, but sharing experiences and like giving each other little tips, and just being with like-minded professionals. Like I guess that's also a positive thing.
Yes, I see. Thank you. So if we continue the same topic, so why do do you think teachers should give talks at conferences, or only teacher trainers should give talks at conferences? And why do you find it useful for your, like, why do you do it? Because actually it's very stressful, isn't it?
It is quite
Why do you
stressful.
keep doing it? It takes a lot of time, it's stressful. Why?
Well, I must be one of those people who I enjoy challenges, and I don't know. It's definitely not true that only teacher trainers should do that. Well, anyone who feels they would like to share something, they've got something to contribute, I think they should go and do that. And sometimes it's just little things which are brilliant, and you do in your classroom, and you assume that everyone else knows that. Well, they don't. It's like reading a book which has been around for a while.
Yeah.
Going back to that method with books. And,
we'll look it up.
And then suddenly you kind of have this feeling of deja vu. I've heard of that, but that's how it could be done. But then listening to somebody who's actually doing that, and when you're trying it out, because a lot of our conferences, they're quite hands-on, like they're very practical. It's a completely different experience, and you may even misunderstand something. You may be doing something in a less effective way, and it's just, well, that tip, that hint you hear, you see, that may help you. So I guess everyone who feels like, oh, I know a very good way of doing something, or I just want to ask an interesting question, that's something I've been thinking about, and I may not have the right answer, I may not have all the answers, but it would be nice to see what others think about it. So it's not necessarily something groundbreaking that you're looking for there, just something you would like to share. It's like sharing a nice experience, a positive experience. Sometimes you feel like you need to do that.
Right.
So I think that's why we all like give talks and
to
participate
share
in conferences.
Yeah.
And another tip, like maybe you shouldn't, like I attended a lot of conferences, and then I decided, well, okay, I'm kind of ready to give my first talk. Well, maybe the stupid thing was I attended the conferences that were different compared to the conferences I kind of gave my first talk.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the same type of conference. So if you're less sure, like go to the conference you're thinking about giving a talk at and see how things are there, so you probably feel more comfortable.
Thank you. So speaking of giving talks, how long does it take you to prepare for a talk? Because you mentioned you do very thorough research.
It's not always like this. It's just the very first talk, well, not the very first talk, but the first talk at an international conference happened to be based on my master's dissertation, and for that you do quite a lot of research. And yes, that was actually very different, because I had about 40 minutes, and I had to put in, thousands of pages into that. So that was interesting. But in general, I don't think, again, it depends on, it's not a matter of hours or days. You start thinking about something, and then you have an idea, and then between the time you have your original idea and the final slides, you're going to use in the presentation, if you're using slides. I think it may, I don't know, develop and change beyond recognition sometimes. But, well, I guess, we started thinking about this conference, I want to say last year, when we finished our first conference. And yes, well, I think in summer I knew I was going to do a talk. And then in this particular case, I can tell you what inspired this particular topic. Right. We were rewriting the course in advanced methodology, revising it for International House over summer with my colleagues, and one of the units that I was revising was about recent approaches. And as you said, when you start doing research, it's sometimes very difficult to stop.
Oh, right.
So again, for an hour and a half session, I had hours of materials, and some of those things, they just didn't fit in. And you feel like it's such a waste. I hate to see waste. So I need to use it somewhere. And then I started thinking about how I can turn it into something practical, something that people may use, and something that people who are not really maybe ready for a course in advanced methodology, are not going to do it right now, well, they would also like, and that's how I got the idea.
Okay, I see.
And it's not still it's not.
So
I don't have
leftovers from the course.
I would say it's the cream,
The cream.
The cream.
I see. So all in all, couple of hours or weeks.
Well, it's definitely not a couple of hours, but you have the original idea, and then maybe to sit down and write it down and rewrite it a couple of times. Normally, maybe a couple of hours here and a couple of hours there. I can't. Well, there is a way of doing. If it's something very familiar, you can do it much faster, I guess. But with this particular topic, I still don't have the final
It's
product.
2 weeks.
I've still got 2 weeks.
weeks.
And I've got obviously the basics. I know. Well, I think it's more or less finalized, but it's been finalized. But in my head on the slides, but I may still make changes.
I see.
But something more familiar, like for example, if I was doing something on international exams, I've got a lot of experience and all the research kind of had been done before. So I think it would probably take me less time. So it depends on how familiar with the topic.
Are you one of those speakers who come on the day of the conference and ask the moderator or the admin person, could I quickly change my presentation for the new one? Or are you the one who sends everything in advance and
I think I have never been in a situation when I can actually change everything last minute. And I try not to do that, but actually with IATEFL, which is like the biggest conference, and I think I've now presented twice there. Well, it's not really that much compared to some other people. And with
zero for me, so twice is good.
Yeah, well, this year we're also going there, and it's going to be the first time I'll present a joint talk with a colleague. So I've never done that before. So that'll be the first experience. There you can actually change things because you don't send them slides in advance, but you shouldn't, because you've sent them, your presentations should still be about like what you promised it will be about, because you send them the blurb and the description months in advance, right? But you can change some slides. Like little, like, you can tweak it a little bit. With our conference, we have to send everything a couple of weeks in advance.
So it's like
I'm not
tonight or on
no,
Friday.
not quite tonight. But deadline is approaching.
And there is no chance.
Well, you could probably change a little bit. And again, I don't know what people have on slides, because I've read more about it, and I've watched like more experienced people talk about how you should prepare slides, what you should include. And I think there isn't actually that much there. You can always, it's not that we read all the slides or anything, you can always, but I think it's not really a very good idea if you want to change everything last night. It's not going to work.
Anxiety.
So I wouldn't recommend that.
It's time we talked about your talk on principled eclecticism, right? And when I read it on the website, I was a bit like surprised and interested, because actually one of my favorite talks by Andrew Walkley is also about principled eclecticism. I've heard him a couple of times, and I remember like after hearing for the first time, I really started thinking about my principles. I hadn't thought of it before. That, I mean, I think we do all have them, but we never think of them, or we never like write them down. So why this topic for you?
Because it's not really new. It's not an original idea. I understand.
I was thought about but why do you care about it? Why do you think it's important?
As I said, like, because I've been looking at all those approaches, and I think it's important because, well, if you've seen that talk, right? And
that talk, yes, yours, no.
And well, I've seen that one as well. And then there is well, you remember better who said that, like, you're not eclectic, you're merely confused. So a lot of people nowadays, they are merely confused. And before that, I was thinking about, like, eclectic and chaotic, not the same thing.
Not the same.
The full name of my talk actually was originally like, a starter kit, but then we decided that it may give the wrong impression, and it's only for people who are just like, beginner teachers.
Right.
But the idea is that, well, I can think about, well, helping people to apply certain principles, like in an eclectic but yet principled way, just by maybe suggesting, again, it's not something that I think is universal or will work for everyone, but it might work for some people. It's just an algorithm. What you might think about first, second, and how you may maybe put this like eclectic, system, like, well, not system, like put this kind of chaotic, similar chaotic system together, right, in a kind of principled manner. So
I see.
It's very practical. It's like the advice I'm going to talk about. It's
very practical. So it's not a merely theoretical talk.
It's to do like with structuring lessons. It's to do about like, it's to do with planning lessons, because we do a lot of practical things.
I see. Could you give an example? What do you mean by principled eclecticism? what is this?
Okay, right. I'll give you an example maybe of somebody being confused and chaotic.
Yeah,
and then
super.
The opposite would be principled
Super,
eclecticism,
perfect.
right?
Much better.
So you know how, well, a lot of people, that's back to your question, like should teachers just attend or present in conferences? I think they should do both. But again, they should do it in a principled manner. Because I remember when I started teaching a while ago, I went to lots of like workshops and seminars, anything I could like find, because you want to get as much experience as many ideas as you can. And you see like a brilliant idea here and a brilliant idea there, and then you try to put them all together in one lesson, and somehow, sometimes, not always, but you're unpleasantly surprised.
Bad ideas. Bad ideas.
It worked with her, but in my class, for some reason, it kind of didn't work at all, right? And that is mainly because sometimes, I think there are few people like this, but sometimes we see something new and something great. Over here, like, all right, everyone is using online tools, like, you know, I don't know. Well, I need to use that too, right? Kahoot. Everyone is using Kahoot. I'll be using it in my class. But like, why is it going to make your class much better? So, principled eclecticism is basically remembering why, or at least asking yourself from time to time why you're doing it like this at this stage, and why do you choose this rather than that. And whether to like do something like you've heard about something very exciting, very new, whether it will work with you or not, and why. So basically asking that question, why.
Why? Oh,
But
terrible question.
Yeah, it's a very general question, but the whole point of that talk I'm going to do is to maybe focus it a little bit more and to make this answer to this question why, because yes, why is a scary question.
Why it is a scary, because you can like, why am I here today?
Yeah, exactly.
You start with it and then okay, class dismissed.
Yeah, why life? Yes.
Okay, now we're going to somebody here right now. Thank you. And I don't know if it's like a personal question or you can answer it. So speaking of principles, because you're going to talk about it, what I mean, do you have them written down, your teaching principles, or maybe somewhere outlined in your head? Could you share what your teaching principles are and how maybe they've changed, you know?
Well, I think it's again like I have some things written down because I prepare talks and presentations only because of that. I think I generally maybe, well, I do have them in my head, I think. I can give a good example, like if I talk, because I'm not going to give you a list, and it's like in the talk we'll look at different principles.
Right.
So it's kind of, it's a little bit, well, time consuming, and but I'll give you an example. I think one of the principles is like the final principle is that principles change.
Yeah.
They're not set in stone. That's obvious. Again, like there's no rocket science. It's not like, you know, suddenly like a revelation. Everyone knows that. And I'll give you a nice example. Well, I don't know, nice. I think I'll give you a relevant example if I talk about how, like, recently one of my own principles has changed yet again.
Oh,
right?
Yeah,
because
okay.
they keep changing. Like, you know, it's a process. Remember you had an interview with you did an interview with Marjorie Rosenberg?
Yeah. Oh, you remember my interview?
Yeah. I was like familiar with her books, and I knew her name, and that's why I kind of was interested, because she is an expert on business English, and I'm interested in that too. And but that particular interview, to my surprise, it was, well, I didn't really develop properly perhaps, but it was mostly about you remember Leona's styles.
Leona's styles, yeah, because it's very controversial thing.
Yeah, it's a very controversial is a good word, because there's been a lot of debate, and a lot of people they are skeptical, to say the least, put it politely.
Yeah, because it was I don't know, everybody was speaking about them, and then kind of the wind changed them.
So basically, and I myself, I was skeptical of, well, I mean, I never liked the idea of labeling people.
Yeah.
And because the way I like experienced in different environments, like I worked in a primary school, for example, once in Britain, and they had this differentiation where, like, you know, little primary school kids, they were put into groups, like green group for maths, like, you know, blue group for like and then they quickly realized, like, you know, which color is the smartest and which color is like, and I remember like that kid saying like to me, oh no, I can't do that because I'm blue. Like,
oh no, I can't do that because I'm blue.
Yeah, like I'll never do that, miss. It's like, oh, that's labeling people. So I was at least skeptical. Well, I mean, it's
I never had this experience.
They had different colors for different subjects, so it was not all that bad. But you know, sometimes we take those things to extremes, and kind of well, change them and basically change the concept. And well, in her talk, Marjorie, well, in her interview, she explained it once again, but for some reason I hadn't thought about it for a while, and then I got interested in that again, and it's really important. I had it in my head, but now I think I'm more well, cautious when I set tasks, when I choose activities, because you need to remember that not everyone, just because you enjoy something, you find it effective, efficient, it doesn't mean that other people will necessarily enjoy it or will find it effective or efficient. So we have to, especially as teachers, we have to remember that everyone is different, and without labeling people, you still need to, well, first of all, make sure that from time to time they do something that is enjoyable to them, not just to you, and that we need to push them out of their comfort zone and challenge them, but we need to find that balance, and just not to assume that, yes, well, it works for me, it will work for them, like, well, why not? So it's just not like that. So yeah, I'm warming again, like, towards well, Leona, not styles, but maybe like, well, slightly more complex.
I think now they use the preferences.
And, well, something more than more complex than VK system, like something.
But actually, like the idea, we should be careful, you know, and see and look at what works, what doesn't, and care for our students.
Well, the same with L1. Like, I've always, like, well, I still, for different reasons, mainly coming from experience, I would say that I would not use L1 when I teach lower levels. But again, like, it's not based on research, and I would be very open to people doing that if they can justify why they do that. But then with high levels, I would probably sometimes use it, like with very high levels, for example, when we translate metaphors or idioms, it's really
you want to find,
you
really want to find the perfect match.
Exactly. Exactly. So, well, things change, and basically, principles, nothing is set in stone, like,
right,
once and for all.
I'd like to talk to you about teaching lower levels without using L1, because I'm now experimenting with teaching Russian as a foreign language.
Oh, that's, I've been there. Right? We can talk about it.
And I do find speaking the L1 of my students, I mean, really helpful. In so many ways. So we can change that principle.
So, well, with Russian, when we teach Russian as a foreign language, I was talking about teaching English. With teaching Russian as a foreign language, I think I've done it, and I think I did use English. Like, you know, I was guilty. Like, guilty.
Actually, I mean, with my student, we we have 1 hour lesson, but basically, I would say that's 30-minute, really, because the rest of the time we sometimes just keep speaking English.
Well, I think there are ways of doing that, and I still believe that when I teach Russian as a foreign language, I probably didn't know as much as I do now. Well, not that I know everything or nearly everything now. Actually, it looks like with time you know less and less when you become more aware of, like,
it's only getting worse. You know that much, and then
but I think it's possible. It also depends on language. It's not only about, you know, the students, obviously it starts with them, but it's also the system of the language that you teach, because it's, you know how with English, when we start teaching it, the initial progress is very fast. So
that's the
like
beauty of it.
The beginners, like elementary, whatever, label those levels, and then suddenly from nothing, they can get any idea across, so just about any, like, you know, and it's a great, like, you know, feeling. They're empowered. I think, and then, well, at about, like, intermediate level, B1, B2, they get stuck, and then it's very difficult to get through that, you know, ceiling. They reach that plateau. And then with Russian, I think it's different. I find that the initial stages are so painful, and
they are.
Yes, they may be able to, like, communicate very basic things quite quickly. We can still teach them some functional exchanges, well, quickly. But then to get to this level of freedom that even, like, you know, a B1 student, B2 student, you know, possesses, it's difficult. But once they're there, I think further progress is faster. So I think it's to do with the system of the languages, because they're slightly different, and all those inflections.
Right, that's the whole, like, different interview or discussion we're going to have here, because I partly agree, partly disagree. Yeah, it would be interesting to talk about that, but not now. Not now. Maybe after your talk or some other day. But actually, we are thinking of because there are so many people, teachers interested in teaching Russian now, and they're following my hashtag because teaching Russian lexically and like applying this approach to Russian. And we're thinking of having a meetup, for Russian as a foreign language enthusiast. So yeah, we could do that then.
Yeah, great.
Thank you so much. I'll be looking forward to your talk.
Thank you
for watching.
inviting me. Yeah,
Thank you.